I just finished volume 3 of Journey to the West, so I thought I'd turn my camera on and just talk about it for a while. Now, I've been talking about this book a lot on this channel recently, but just in case anyone's forgotten or just in case anyone's new here, I'll recap the basics briefly. So, Journey to the West is a classic Chinese novel. It's considered one of the four greatest classic Chinese novels. It was written in the 16th century, and it's very loosely based on a true story about a Chinese Buddhist monk who traveled to India in the 7th century to pick up some sacred Buddhist texts, which he then brought back with him to China. That original true story over the centuries got retold and retold until it became this huge mythic epic, which has very little relationship to the actual historical event by the time it gets to this format. In the mythic retelling, the monk is constantly attacked by all sorts of demons on his journey to the west, to India. But he's also accompanied by a number of superpowered beings who help him. The most preeminent of them is the monkey, aka the Monkey King, this superpowered monkey who helps him. He also has a pig who helps him, and some sort of sand demon who, in this translation, is referred to as Friar Sand. I think all of these characters, their names depend somewhat on what translation you buy. And there's also a dragon who has been transformed into their horse, although by volume 3, the author seems to have largely forgotten about the dragon. He pops up very briefly once in volume 3, so he's still there. It's very long, 100 chapters long. This volume I have here, this is volume 3 out of 4, is chapters 52 to chapter 76. And because the page numbers are continuous between the volumes, it starts off with page 1177 and goes all the way to page 1758. But I contend that it's actually much longer than that because the print here is so tiny. I mean, you compare the print size here, right, of these books. So that there is I don't know what the word count of this is, but it's a lot. It's a lot to get through. Now, the volumes will depend on your publisher. So the ancient Chinese epic, I don't think, was divided into volumes. It just depends on how the publisher divides the chapters into volumes. So, and the different publishers may have different numbers of volumes. This publisher here, which is Foreign Languages Press, Beijing, has 4 volumes. I've just finished volume 3. And like I said before, it's 100 chapters, so 25 chapters to each volume would have made sense, except I think they're doing it by page count instead. So chapter 52 to chapter 76, like I just said. Now, it's a travel story, so they're traveling along. They meet a demon, they fight a demon, they defeat the demon, and then they travel along a little bit further, and then they encounter another demon. So it's just kind of one demon king after another that they encounter on this journey and have to defeat. I was warned before I started this book that it would be somewhat repetitive. And it is. It's somewhat repetitive in the broad strokes, in that basically each chapter is a battle with a different demon. And it's oddly repetitive in some of the specific strokes. There are some very specific plot lines that get repeated. Reminds me of when I read the Brothers Grimm fairy tales, which was also repetitive in the broad strokes, like a prince saving a princess. But also there were some very oddly specific details that got repeated multiple times. But basically there was there were multiple stories which were essentially the same with very minor details that had gotten recorded under different names in the Brothers Grimm's fairy tales collection, if you read the complete version. This strikes me as reminiscent of that, in that there are a couple times stories that really are essentially the same. And I think that must just be a result of the fact that by the time this was written down in the 16th century, it had already been circulating as folklore for like 9 centuries before that. Just like the Brothers Grimm were collecting some tales that were very similar to each other, I think that the collector of the stories for this book, who according to tradition is Wu Cheng'en, I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, when he was collecting all the stories that would make up this volume, he probably found a number of stories that were very similar. Now, I've been making an attempt to review each volume as I finish it. Volume 1 was easy to review, partly because Volume 1 was a little bit different. Volume 1 was the origin story of everybody. So it was the origin story of the monkey, who's actually the main character in this book. The monk is just kind of like the Lois Lane of this book. He's the guy that the monkey always has to save from the villain. The monkey is the main character. So chapter 1 had an extended origin story of the monkey, and then the origin stories of the other characters. Sorry, volume 1. Volume 1 had an extended origin of the monkey, and then the origins of the other characters. And then the tail end of volume 1 was them going out on the journey. Volume 2, though, was a little bit more difficult for me to review because it was just more of the same. It was just more episodes where they encountered demons and then fought them. And in fact, my attempt to review Volume 2 on this channel was a disaster. Because I turned on the camera and then I realized that I didn't really have anything to say about Volume 2. I guess I could have gone through it chapter by chapter and just commented on each chapter. And I did actually, when I was reviewing Volume 2, pull up a chapter summary off of the internet. I have something I found on Weebly, which I'll try and remember to link down below. But that proved to be just kind of too long to talk through. And plus, I've already been giving chapter summaries in my weekly reading vlogs that I've been doing concurrently with reading this book. So to just kind of summarize the chapters again and just kind of go through what had happened in all of them seemed to be redundant. So yeah, once I realized that I had nothing to say, I just turned off the camera awkwardly and then turned it back on and tried to make a coda. But it was a bit of a disastrous review, if I don't say so myself. So for Volume 3, I thought I would actually plan this out a little bit more. Before I read this book, I looked at the chapter summary, I flipped through the book, and I tried to parse out how many different stories there were. Because the stories are not always analogous with the chapters. Sometimes one story will stretch one chapter, sometimes it will stretch 2 chapters, sometimes it will stretch 3 chapters. I don't think it usually goes much more than 3 chapters. Certainly not for any of the stories in Volume 3 did it. And I put them down in a Google Doc, and I'll just talk through the storylines in general without getting into a chapter by chapter summary. So I've divided this up into 14 different storylines, although it depends a little bit how you split them, and I'll talk about this in a moment. The first one is fighting against the Rhinoceros King in chapter 52. And that's actually a storyline that gets that comes from Volume 2. The publishers of this, when they split this up into volumes, just did it by page count and by chapters, and didn't really split it cleanly by story arcs. So chapter 52, which opens up this volume, is wrapping up the battle against the Rhinoceros King, which was started in previous chapters. So I'll just largely give that one a pass. We'll consider that part of volume 2 still. Then chapters 53 and 54 take place in the land of women. So this is a kingdom of women where it's all women, and they are really desperate to meet some men. And I've divided this into two storylines. There's chapter 53, where the monk and the pig get pregnant because they drink from a water which turns out is water that makes you pregnant, which is how these women reproduce without having any men. So the monk and the pig wish to abort their pregnancy. So there is some abortion water in this cave somewhere. It's being guarded by a Taoist who hates the monkey because he has a grudge. He's the uncle of Red Boy, who was a demon that Monkey had defeated in the previous volume. But Monkey does battle him. He does eventually get the abortion water, and the monk and the pig are able to abort their pregnancies by drinking this water. If it's not already apparent from that summary, this is largely done for humorous effect. Interesting that abortion being such a controversial topic in American politics nowadays, to see this being kind of one gets the impression, or I got the impression from reading that abortion was had a lot less moral overtones in 16th century China. But I don't know. You don't want to overgeneralize from one book, do you? Sorry, my arm's getting tired. I'm going to put down the book. I don't know why I was holding it to begin with. Then chapter 54 is still in the land of the women, but I'm counting as a separate storyline. That's when the queen of the land of the women wants to marry the monk. The monk can't marry her because he's got like a vow of celibacy as a Buddhist monk. But this now normally, if the monk's in trouble, then the monkey just comes in and kills the demons. But the monkey can't kill her because she's a human woman, and what's more, she's showing them kindness. So they have to resort to subterfuge to kind of escape from her and her marital intentions. Both of these chapters 52 and 53, were a bit silly, but I'm giving them credit for being something different. They weren't simply just fighting a demon again. Then at the very end of chapter 54, the monk gets abducted by a demon woman who wants to have sex with him. And so I don't know, maybe I'm going to count that as Land of the Women Part 3. Although here we move to her cave. The monkey goes to fight her to rescue the monk and gets stung by her stinger. It turns out she's actually a scorpion spirit. Now, now's as good a time as any to maybe try to describe what I think is going on with this book. It appears that any animal or plant can reach some higher form of being by what is called cultivating their conduct, which I think is just kind of Taoist meditation and Taoist rituals. It gives you kind of like superpowers in the world of this book. And the Buddhists, as far as I can tell, also use these same meditations and rituals. Now, I don't know. I'm not an expert on any of this stuff. Don't ask me anything about Taoism or Buddhism, but it is mentioned a few times in this volume that apparently Buddhism when it came into China, made use of the Taoist meditation practices that were already in practice. So the Taoism seeming to be native to China, Buddhism always obviously coming from India, but a couple times some of the Taoist characters in here make reference to the fact that Taoist is the original and then Buddhist is just extra stuff grafted onto Taoism. So anyways, by cultivating their conduct, any animal or plant can arrive into these higher form of beings, and then they can attain human form. But when they attain human form, they maintain somewhat of the essence of their old, of their original body. It comes out in some sort of way. And they're usually referred to as some sort of demon, and I'm not sure where the demon part comes in. I'm not quite sure what demon means in the mythology of this. It appears that the demons can redeem themselves. It's not like Christian mythology where the devil and the demon are irredeemably evil. They can convert to Buddhism, and sometimes they do at the end of the chapter, and sometimes the monkey just kills them. Anyways, turns out that this demon woman is actually a scorpion. So the monkey battles her, and he actually gets some help from heaven. Who does he get help from again? I forget. Although I said I wasn't going to do a detailed summary of this, huh? He gets help from somebody up in heaven to beat her. Then the next story, which I'm counting as story number 5, which chapter 56 to 58, they encounter a group of robbers, and Monkey kills some of them. Now, Monkey has been killing a lot of creatures all throughout this story, but he is technically supposed to be forbidden from killing humans. Humans are different than the demon spirits. And the monk, being a good Buddhist, is absolutely horrified about it. After Monkey is warned and continues to kill some humans, the monk banishes him. Now, this is a repeat storyline of sorts. Monkey already got banished once by the monk for the same offense. I think this was in volume 2. The previous time, actually, Monkey was killing demons who were disguised as humans, and the monk just didn't realize it. Here, Monkey has actually killed humans, so he gets banished. Monkey goes to Guanyin, the Bodhisattva, but while he's there, there's a lookalike of Monkey who tries to take his place. And when Monkey finds out about the lookalike, they have a huge battle, which goes all over Earth and Heaven and Hell, where it's like a cartoon the way it's described. There's just like this cloud of battling, and they're fighting each other, but they're also going up to heaven and going down to hell while they're having this huge fight. And everywhere they go, sorry, the rubber band I was playing with just snapped. Everywhere they go, nobody can tell them apart until finally the Buddha finally tells them apart, and then Monkey finally kills the lookalike. Then we get to what I've classified as story number 6. This is chapters 59 to 61. They get to a land where the mountains are on fire, so everything's really hot and they can't pass through the mountains. There's a Princess Ironfan who has a fan that can put out the flames. She's another demon spirit. But she is the mother of Red Boy, who Monkey defeated in the previous volume. Now, Monkey didn't actually kill Red Boy. Red Boy ended up being one of those demons that was converted to Buddhism and became a member of the court of the Bodhisattva, the Guanyin. The Guanyin's the female Buddha. You know, like in China or Japan where you see statues of the female Buddha, that's her, Guanyin, or the Bodhisattva. Yeah, so Red Boy wasn't actually killed; he was just converted and is in Guanyan's court. But uh, his parents still hold a grudge. Princess Ironfan is his mother, and his father is the Bull Demon. Uh, so chapters 59 to 61, Monkey gets in a huge fight which involves Princess Ironfan and then later the Bull Demon. The Bull Demon transforms into this huge giant bull at the end of it, and kind of not only Monkey but all of the heavenly forces end up fighting against him. Um, it I ended up looking him up on Wikipedia while I was reading these chapters because there were some allusions to the monkey and the bull demon being old friends from the monkey's early days. And I didn't remember that from volume one. I'm sure it was there, I just didn't remember it. So I went to Wikipedia to look that up and found out that according to Wikipedia, the bull demon is, even though he just only appears in a few chapters in this book, I think his story arc is done after chapter 61. He is frequently portrayed as the main antagonist whenever this story is filmed. And you might not be familiar with this book if you're from America, but it's been turned into numerous TV shows and movies in Japan and China. So it's been filmed many times over, and apparently the Bull Demon is usually reimagined as like the main antagonist when it's filmed. And then chapters 62 to 63 are kind of like a continuation of this, although I'm counting it as a separate story. They go to a kingdom, and they find that the kingdom is in misery because its treasure got stolen long ago. And they find out that the treasure got stolen by one of the dragons who lives in a lake, who was a friend of the Bull Demon that we actually met in the storyline with the Bull Demon. So Monkey goes back to this dragon who he had encountered before in the chapters about the Bull Demon, and has a big fight against the dragon and his whole family and his son-in-law, who's like this 9-headed bird monster. And again, the forces of heaven come down to aid in that fight. Then what I'm calling Story 8, Chapter 64, they're passing through the mountains, and the monk gets abducted by these spirits. The monk is constantly getting abducted by demon spirits who want to eat him. But in this case, the spirits don't want to eat him. They just want to recite poetry with him. Then after they've all recited poetry for a while, there's a lot of poetry in that chapter, which I must admit was somewhat bored me, but I got through it. They try to get the monk to sleep with this peach princess, or when he refuses to sleep with her, to marry her, and the monk gets real upset, and he's eventually rescued by his disciples. And it turns out that these spirits are plant spirits, which had been heavily alluded to in the poems that they were saying, because they kept having poems about their roots and their branches and stuff like that. So yeah, not only animals, but also plants can also cultivate their conduct and achieve these powers. And something I thought was a little bit harsh. The pig uproots all those plants and kills them. And Monkey explains that it needed to be done so that they won't cause any more trouble to other passerbyers. Including like the princess, who was also some sort of peach plant. They were all plants, all plant spirits. It's one of the things about this book is, on the whole, as I've mentioned in my videos before, it's significantly less bloodthirsty than most of what comes from the Western tradition. So humans are not to be killed. The monkey ignores that order every now and again. But when he does ignore it, he's usually punished. So only the demons who are killed, and even then, more often than not, the demons are converted rather than killed. but then every now and again they are just kind of wiped out. Because I don't know, I don't know. Every now and again, there's an act that seems really harsh against the demons. Then story 9, chapter 65 to 66, they get tricked. They're traveling along. They come to a temple. Monkey warns them not to go in, but the monk wants to worship the Buddha, and it turns out it's a trap. And it's this monster. Yellow Brows is his name in the Weebly summary translation, who has this bag which which can capture people by throwing it at them. And this battle goes on for 2 chapters, chapter 65 to 66, in which Monkey is recruiting more and more help to fight him in his battle. He recruits a whole bunch of heavenly warriors, including the 28 constellations of the Chinese zodiac, who all come down and fight. One of the really great things about this book is all the interesting, fantastical creatures in it. Lots of different heavenly creatures get dragged into the fight. But the demon just has these bags where he's able to throw the bags up and they just capture whoever. Finally, one of the Buddhas, not the Buddha, but one of the lesser Buddhas. Apparently there are lesser Buddhas. I don't really quite understand it. Comes down to help, and it turns out that this monster is actually a servant of his that escapes, and he's able to retrieve the monster, get his servant back, and everyone else is free. This struck me as extremely similar story to the battle against the Rhinoceros King. In both stories, there's this sort of demon who has this magic thing he throws up, and it just kind of defeats everybody. In both stories, Monkey is recruiting a whole bunch of different warriors from around the heavens. In both stories, they're always getting defeated. In both stories, it turns out at the end that the demon is actually an escaped servant or an escaped pet from one of the gods or one of the Buddhas, who is finally just retrieved by his master at the end. So again, repetitive storylines here, often. Chapter 67, I've classified as story 10. This is a battle first against a big python who's terrorizing a village. And then they have to get across the mountains, but the mountains are covered with rotting persimmon fruit. So the pig has to just kind of clear out all the rotten fruit with his snout. Then they get to the kingdom of Purpurea, or what in the Weebly translation, whoever wrote these summaries on Weebly is operating off of a different translation than I am, the Scarlet Purple Kingdom. And they're there for chapters 68 to 71, but I've classified that into 2 storylines. Part 1 is where the monkey plays doctor, and he cures the king of Purpurea, who has this sort of illness that the monkey's able to cure. And this part is where the author seems to suddenly remember that the horse is a dragon, because one of the ways monkey cures him is by getting dragon piss from the horse, who's really a dragon in disguise. It's the only acknowledgement in volume 3 that the horse is actually a dragon. I don't really know much about the history of the composition of this book, but I guess I would just imagine that since these were various folk tales that were being collected, I guess in some of these folk tales there was not a tradition of the horse being a dragon, which is why the horse is just referred to as an ordinary horse through most of it, and then just one brief acknowledgement in volume 3 that the horse is actually a dragon. And then part two, sorry, chapters 70 to 71 is what I'm calling the Kingdom of Porporia storyline part two, in which Monkey has to rescue the queen. So it turns out one of the reasons the king was so sick from worry is because his queen had been abducted by a demon. Monkey goes to rescue her. This is also a storyline that's very repetitive with earlier storylines. So it turns out that this demon is actually one of the pets of the Guan and the Bodhisattva, which her pets have escaped before. She had a goldfish which escaped and was one of the demons in volume 2. And the rhinoceros king, that wasn't the Bodhisattva's pet, but that was somebody else's pet. And it also turns out that the king had some bad karma he needed to work off because he killed some birds he shouldn't have killed when he was hunting one day. And so the demon, as a pet of Bodhisattva, was actually fulfilling a heavenly mission by kidnapping his wife and keeping him separated from his wife for 3 years. And that as well was a plot line from one of the stories in volume 2, where, I think it was the same thing. It turned out that the demon was actually one of the pets of one of the gods, and that it was tormenting the king because the king had bad karma. Or abducting the queen, I think in both cases, because the king had bad karma. Okay, then chapter 72 to 73, I've classified this as story 13. This is where they're fighting the female spider demons. So again, I'd be lying if I said I understand this. But my impression is that the animals are insects or plants who are able to cultivate their conduct through Taoist meditations, are able to transform their figures and also to have enhanced powers. So these are, I think it's seven women who are repeatedly referred to as being very beautiful, who kidnap the monk, and then Monkey and Pig go out to fight against them. Monkey sees them bathing, and Monkey has his huge cudgel with which he kills demons with. But Monkey says to himself, well, I don't want it said of me that I killed a bunch of girls who are just bathing. So he steals their clothes again. There's some... after the narrator has established multiple times that these are very lovely women, then there's some, what would you call it, a bit of a lecherous part of the narrative. Pig goes in, they say, what are you doing? We're bathing in here naked, and he jumps in with them. And then he turns into a catfish and he swims around their private parts. But they, being spider demons, are able to shoot out webs from their stomach. And then Monkey rescues the monk, and they have 7 children who it turns out are not their children, but these are insects that they've captured. And the insects, before the spiders ate them, the insects pleaded for their lives. So the spiders spared them if they would become like their children, like their servants. So there's like what is it? A wasp and a bee, and they're all these different children. And apparently, these insects have also are Taoists, have cultivated their conduct because they're able to transform into little children, and they fight them. And then they end up at the house of their teacher, who's also a Taoist teacher, who turns out to be a centipede spirit, who fights them as well. And he's got all these eyes that shine out bright lights, but he gets defeated. Monkey calls for help again, and he gets defeated by... who is it? Sorry, he gets defeated by somebody. The Weebly summary says Prolamba, but it was a different name in my translation. I forget what it is. And then after defeating the centipede, she doesn't kill him, but she just takes him away to be the guard of her door. So another example in which these demons are just kind of converted rather than killed. Although the 7 spider women are killed rather heartlessly by Monkey as they're pleading for their lives. He just whacks them with his cudgel. That the reason he did that is because he was in the middle of his battle with the centipede Taoist. And then chapters 74 to 76 is they're trying to cross the mountain, and there are 3 senior demons of the mountains, a lion demon, what is it? A lion demon and an elephant demon, and what was the other one? There's a lion, lion demon, an elephant demon, and a rock demon. I forget what the rock one was. And they are battling through chapters 74 to 76. And at the end of chapter 76, it looks like they've been defeated, but they're actually planning a surprise ambush. And that's where volume 3 ends. So to find out how that storyline with the 3 senior demons of the mountain ends, I'm going to have to pick out volume 4 out of my school library, which I will do. Hopefully nobody checked it out in the meantime. And on to volume 4 next, the last volume.